Mike and Crash back again.
Hello, I'm back with Mike today. Not just
Been a
me.
long road.
Yeah, and rough.
And what I'm going to give to you today was all the things I was afraid that I wasn't going to be able to tell you. So I want you to understand what I'm saying because it was important for me to get to here to tell you. I wanted to start with this text message from Maria Pursuto. This was in 2013. Please assume you are against evil, not just corruption. Keep your entire plan a secret. Well, you know what? And again, these are thoughts that I had in my head as I was wondering if I was still going to be here. These were the things that I needed to have you understand in case I wasn't. So that's why this opportunity to tell you is so important. It wasn't just corruption. What I was fighting was what I found was satanic. I mean, if there's the devil, if there is evil, it's what I found. A measure of a man is his enemies. Who were my enemies? I put cartels on signs. These people were killing and trafficking your children. I found the Department of Justice and the FBI that was protecting them. And what is running your country now, which is blackmail and extortion, which is the connection of the CIA and the Mossad and defense intelligence. This is how it works. That's blackmail and extortion. That's your Senate, that's your Congress, and it's your president. They are compromised. And it is intentionally compromised. My enemies have been satanic. They profit by your death. What did I uncover? Ponzi schemes that taking the light work of the elderly, addicting your children, and having the same cartels owning treatment centers and controlling then the prisons they put your children in. If that's not satanic, what is satanic? Okay, Crash. Now, this Maria Pursuto is on the $50 million settlement. So is this Ted Little. But these are the things that went through my mind again, and what you had to understand. What's taken me 20 years to understand. These people can stop your life in a heartbeat. Again, I won't move on this info until they are in the air. And yes, they are that bad where I have to do this. He's referring to moving his children to California to be with their mother. He's afraid they will be murdered. He is working for the Department of Justice and Bill Shaheen. And he's afraid they're going to be murdered. They can stop your life in a heartbeat. Who was I then? I was a multimillionaire, the leading mortgage broker in the United States. What did I watch this weekend? I watched the Breeders' Cup, the championships of horse racing. And you know what I saw? Globalists. I saw billionaires from Japan. You've heard sovereignty, Kentucky Derby. That's the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. Those are the billionaires, global billionaires. And I was the world champion. I was the world champion, not them. I was. And you know where I was? As I've been in 10 years? One room, one meal, with my teeth falling out. Not going to a doctor. How's that? Reminded me of what one of their lawyers said to me. And then me and Crash even talked about putting this as the title. Cursed by brilliant insight, condemned by moral conviction. I want that on my fucking tombstone. Insight made me a wealthy man. I came from nothing. My father was a bus driver. My mother was a handicapped woman that couldn't work. We lived in poverty. I went to school to be a priest, accepted poverty.
You started a fish, your fish
Fish market, right.
Yeah.
I went from school wondering what to be, not to be a priest, and went on a fishing trip with my dad. The next thing I know is we get off the boat. I bought haddock at 25 cents a pound and started a fish market. Quite clever, really. Gill's Fish Market. But that was my path. But moral conviction never left me. I was the guy who fought for the little guy, always. That's why I asked you, who are these people you follow? Who were they before? The truth comes with only sacrifice. And could I've sacrificed more? Even what I'm telling you now, I was thinking I was going to die. At the same time, and we can go over, I was threatening to be murdered, which in the irony and mistake they made, I leave on my own terms. So the sickness, don't threaten my ass. But then you make me want to fight. And that's what we're doing here. And that's why you're hearing me now. And this is the truth that you have to understand from the front to back of this. This is what I was afraid you weren't going to hear. The very few of you that will. It's your responsibility to share. And the thing about the truth is, it sounds like the truth. Look around what you're seeing with Charlie Kirk's wife, Trump telling you the tariffs. We went from 37 billion to 38 trillion, rather.
Trillion, yeah.
You're going in the wrong fucking direction. They're all fucking lying to you. The thing about the truth is, it stands. What I've told you for 20 years stands as the truth today. All right, so let's tell you what's happening now so you understand it. Okay. The last post that I gave you, I said, there is an investigation going on. They want me to be silent. If I die soon, trust it wasn't natural causes. Sorry for not saying more, but I don't want them to know my condition. All that I've told you has been the truth. Okay. I had gotten a phone call that asked me if I was testifying in the investigation. I just said, what? Then they told me that I wouldn't survive to testify. So they also gave me a clue. They also told me they were afraid. And also at that moment where I was sick. Now, I can't tell you they made me sick, but I'm not telling you they didn't. This thing with timing, which is what I've always told you, fit pretty perfectly. But I will tell you, they gave me motivation to kick them in the ass, which is what we're doing here now. So I'm telling you they're afraid, and I'm going to tell you why they're afraid and what's really going on. Now, you can hit the next one. How did they get my number? Because I was set up by Wells. You remember how I told you, Crash, they told me not to say anything?
When you say Wells, you mean John B. Wells.
John B. Wells, thank you. And going on the show. Well, I told Crash that I was talking to Wells for about 40 minutes. In the last 5 minutes, his wife gets on the phone. She was listening the whole time, which seemed kind of weird to me. But I explained who Mary Fanning was Mary Fanning was one of the orchestrators of this. She wrote the playbook that Flynn used.
For J6.
Right, insurrection. That's also going to be the path. That's what all this is about. And I'm going to put it together for you by piece, so you understand absolute. But it explained to me why Fanning comes out of this. What did we find out from Fanning? Not only did she post and threaten me with my telephone numbers to everybody, which is exactly what happened the very next day. If me and Crash didn't do our podcast on Thursday and post on Friday I wouldn't have been able to do it. That's how sick I got. And that's when this threat came over. And why Fanning? What did we show you in the podcast? That Fanning's husband was connected in the sale of Dominion. They turned around and gave Giuliani and Powell a pass, and Fanning, even though Fanning was in the Lindell lawsuit mentioned 34 times, which is why Vandersteel was calling out Fanning, because some of these podcasters are going down. Here's the separation. Oh, wait, you can take that off. So what did we, now this is something that was sent to me. We're going to be finding out that the DOJ has been sending me a few things to help. Now they're sending me the connection with Flynn, with Wells. It was always the case. They were connected with it. That's military intelligence. That's Wells. That's Fanning. That's the insurrection. The insurrection on J6 was a DOJ plot to set you up. And exactly what happened. And it was tied, Flynn was tied to Trump. And what you're going to find out, Flynn got immunity. And then if Trump turned around, and what did they do 4 years after that? They profited on it. They built the insurrection. They wanted to create civil unrest. They wanted an armed insurrection. It was the plot of the DOJ. So in other words, and Fanning was part of it. But it's also their path against Trump. And listen, there is no good in this. He is compromised. Compromised by the Mossad, compromised why we were in Israel, compromised as the Senate and Congress. You cannot get our country back unless we turn around and go to the core of this corruption and evil and have you understand really what's going on. Okay. You can hit the next one. Now.
It's really blurry, so I can't.
The important thing is this is from
Fanning.
November 23.
Yeah.
It's from Mary Fanning reaching out to me, right? And being on Wells' show. You know who gave me Brummel? Mary Fanning. Why Brummel? Defense intelligence. That's evergreen. That's child trafficking. You know how she knew? Because they were both working with Flynn. That's the organization that they took. Someone was so compromised by moving children, would do anything until, including the insurrection of this country, what they're all afraid of, which each and every one of them used, including Fanning, including Tina Peters, all of them. They used me as leverage against Flynn in case Flynn backstabbed them. That was Lynn Wood recording Flynn and having you hear it. Listen, in the world of corruption, no one trusts anyone. They know the nature of the person because they work with him. So I became their protection. Them, by Fanning giving me Brummel, gave her an insurance policy against Flynn turning against her. Also, which I didn't understand, which I understand now, was leverage against the DOJ. My evidence. That's the Pandora's box. Okay.
Now, before I don't want to get you off track,
No,
but
go ahead.
I want to ask you about, okay, the fact that Brummel, okay, Mary Fanning had a bunch of little minions that were coming after you about Brummel. Were they do you think they were trying to get what you knew about Brummel out of you?
Yes. See, she gave me Brummel, but they didn't know I had more.
Right. Okay.
About Brummel.
Right.
In fact, I was on Michelle Moore's show, which was CIA. If there's somebody evil in this, it's Michelle Moore. who ratted me out the whole time, which is always part of this Flynn CIA organization. When I went on there and gave you Brummel, they wanted to know a witness that I had, somebody who was a guard of Brummel, and I won't say any more. And I don't give up witnesses, but that's why they said that Marty Waters and so forth, and those
Yeah.
other people, Patricia, for God's sakes, tell us. For God's sakes, shut the fuck up. That's what it was. And was also why Michelle was there, to try to get that inside information. We had no friends. The truth's an orphan.
Yeah.
Okay, now I need you to understand. Fanning's reaching out. Tina Peters is reaching out. Now think about everything, buddy, that's connected with this insurrection's reaching out to me, including 107. That's what they were doing. Now think about this. Saban had to turn me. Flynn had to turn me. And you're going to find out more and why. So hit the next one. That's why everything you see, who was telling you that I was the closer, the most important whistleblower in history? It was all Flynn. This was Juan. This was Nino telling you how important I was. What did even Nino, when I called them out and said they were Flynn, Defense Intelligence? Well, his evidence is still really important. Right, because that evidence was blackmail against the DOJ. So Flynn was using that as protection. So was the CIA. And those 98% of all the podcasters, they still had to have you understand that. Hit the next one. What did Santelli say? I could be weaponized in Congress. Do you know what they're doing now? Threatening my life? Not to testify in Congress. Well, good luck with that, shitheads. But that's what they were telling you. And they were telling you who I was and how important I was over and over again. All of Flynn's people. Because what I had to do is they were still using me as blackmail against the DOJ. Hit it. We got Jaco, right? Did I ever change my tune? Did I ever change what I was saying? Situation update. Gil destroys General Flynn. You bet your ass. It was the insurrection. It was the plot of the DOJ. But never think that he wasn't the CIA. They gave you the black hats and the white hats. They played both sides of the ball, just as Michelle Moore did. It is 98%. And I believe you're looking at the 2%. I don't vouch for any of them. Now, but think about this, right? This is after December 18th. This is me going into the podcast world. And you know what? The first week in the podcast world, the DOJ cuts my Social Security from 23 to 1100. They did it again now. You know why? We're in the same place.
Right.
They need to be me silenced. They need to me be in a bad place that I have to make a deal. One meal, one room is all I've asked for help for. Never more. And they leverage and impression me because we're back to where we were then. Understand where we are. And me testifying. Jack Schmidt didn't go away, boys and girls. But let's take you back to December 18th. And I want to show you that, listen, if the insurrection is the only direction the DOJ can go in, they can't open the Epstein files. Because you just might ask the question, why didn't the FBI and the DOJ open the Epstein files? Because Epstein worked for them. And Trump is compromised with also Epstein and money laundering. That's why I was called. You know who knew about this? O'Keefe. Who sent James O'Keefe and the Mossad errand day? Was the DOJ to get my evidence and then to have me murdered. And we put those in those podcasts. You've seen that going on. They don't question the evidence. You've seen the evidence go to the DOJ, including a videotape of murder attempts, 2 of them on video. So, what did Flynn want? He wanted December 18th because that was the implementation of this insurrection plot. That was Fanning before that. That was Stacy Burke and Flynn and that whole organization before that. It culminated to that. That's why I had to be in check, because I was their insurance policy against the Department of Justice in their plot. Okay? So in other words, remember, this is hard evidence. Jack Smith was going after Trump with the insurrection. It was the path to give them immunity, not the contagion of the Epstein files, not the contagion of the Pandora's box. What did we find out about the Pandora's box? Have you not found out about the cartels? We'll go and more. All of what I told you came true, but the insurrection was the path that they had to take that would also give them immunity, that would take out Trump, that was compromised. Trump knew what the DOJ did too, which is why Trump kept always threatening every time they got close to him with opening the Pandora's box. You haven't heard it recently. Boy, when his ass was in trouble, because the insurrection was their path. That was Jack Smith. Okay, hit the next one. The next one was the settlement. Again, oh, okay.
Oh, I already had shown them. Sorry, I thought we were.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. You can go back to that. But the other one was the settlement. That was again December 18th. How did they know about the settlement? Why did they call for the settlement? Because the names on that settlement was the IRS, was Bill Shaheen, which was the U.S. Attorney for the Department of Justice, was the Banking Department, Banking Commission, Department of Revenue, all that audits. That's how they created this laundering network. That's why you're 38 trillion in debt and going broke. That's the truth of it. And it's the only path you have to save this country is to get those trillions back, which you can, because those billionaires and trillionaires stole your money. We can take it back. That's the path. And remove these people from just not from office, but can take control of the Department of Justice. Again, this was one of the last texts. This was on January 7th. Flynn isn't responding to anyone. I don't know what else to do, Mike. We're all scattered right now. This is them. I risked my life. I put my children out there. We all did, Mike. We didn't take any pay. This is that guy Tessero. You're going to hear more about him.
I don't think that's how you say his name. I'd have to look it up.
All right. We'll show you the spelling.
He was
but
a
it's
Flynn,
that asshole.
He was a Flynn guy, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You'll see he was part of this whole insurrection plot. He had Charles Flynn on the phone. When I started figuring out what these people would do, you'll see what I did. But how can we have an insurrection and that be the plot, and the DOJ is going to tag Trump with the insurrection, using Flynn and Powell and Giuliani as witnesses, and not have me involved as the key witness, which is why I was going to get smoked in Arizona. All right, let's keep going. I passed everything up looking to see what's next. I'm trying, Mike. We got a lot going on. A lot going on. It was the insurrection. It was the whole plot. And I'm saying, why aren't we telling the American people? We get a lot going on. What did I tell them? I understand, but this is key to open the door to the deep state. I'm talking about their money laundering in the billions, tied to casinos. I have their wires and witnesses. I hope you understand this is get two senators. That's Shaheen and Hassan. That's the IRS. I haven't heard anything that gets this, including that. So again, I'm saying a money laundering. Remember I told you Penn National. Remember I told you for finding and tracking their money. This is what I was giving Flynn and his team. This is what they used as blackmail and leverage, which is why they always told you I was telling the truth. All of their people were. All right, hit it.
That is the next one there.
Okay. There's that guy, Jim. Okay, I'll be waiting for it. Did you see the video, Married to the Mob? I just sent you maybe an hour and a half ago that sworn deposition and a breakdown of the settlement that included Penn National Racetrack and casinos, another key element of money laundering and moving money to New Hampshire. Did we not just see what happened? What did I do? We did a podcast, and it was Penn National And we found out through the DOJ that Trump was partners with Penn National, the same wire service. Remember I said married to the mob? Well, guess what happened, boys and girls? And we're going to talk about it too. We just found out that the Costa Nostra was tied into point shaving in the NBA. I guess they are still alive and well. And it is, and what do they get charged for? Wire fraud, money laundering. What did I give you weeks before? Exactly that. When I gave you the cartels with Penn National, what did we find out? The Sinaloa cartel got busted across the country. They didn't tell you where the drugs were going. They didn't tell you the American cartels were the distribution and the DOJ was the protection service. How do you think this all happened? Okay, next. This is important. So after J7th,
And I'm sorry, it's James Tesoro, right? Tesuro.
yes,
Okay.
okay. So what happened after J7th? I drove to Massachusetts. I went to go, my plan was to go to the Department of Justice. I had Audra Tube, who was my greatest ally, who you've seen and posted that I've saved her life on 2 occasions. Well, they got her. And they got Flynn. Flynn got him, and Roger Stone. But now understand this. I didn't give James my telephone number. This was a new one. I said this: you may be getting a call, including the criminal report, indicating that I've been speaking to you with direct line to General Flynn. This is a heads up. Please pass this up as before. Mike? How did he know it was me? He knew it was me because he knew I was a problem. And what did I go to the DOJ to report Flynn and the insurrection? And I did it to go to Boston. Who was there before was taking my evidence? Lullen. Who arrested Maxwell? Lullen. In New Hampshire, represented by Bill Shaheen. Are you getting this? What did you do? I'd gone to the Boston police. I also went to the state police. I went to the DOJ, opening up a case against the Treasury Inspector General's office and the IRS, the same law firms and attorneys out of Boston, the $50 million settlement, the settlement they asked for. I was going to use the evidence I gave them to incriminate the insurrection plot. Now, well, actually, the next one should be that Audra Tube.
Oh, okay.
So what happened? The person going to hold the camera that was going to help me, Audra Tube, who was being prosecuted by the Department of Justice for 4 years. You know what for? Because she gave me a septic scam. Right. Full of shit. Erin Day gave it to the FBI as they gave in all the witnesses. The FBI called her and they said, if you speak to Gil again, we'll put a bullet in your head, and she recorded him. They prosecuted her for federal wiretapping. And let's see, run back. Gil's a public figure, former candidate for governor, billionaire, successful business owner, some shit about horse racing. Well, wait a minute. Who's front and center following her? General Michael Flynn. How's that? That's who captured her. That was the DOJ. That's what they stopped me for. So all the way from Florida, the DOJ in Washington, with the insurrection plot to Boston, they were waiting for me, and with those people. Okay, hit it.
Now, is your next one the Tika, or is that, because that's where you told me to put it? This one
Yeah,
here.
we'll hold off to the Tika one.
Okay,
The
hold on.
next picture should be
That.
Ketchel.
Yeah. Okay.
That's my fault. Crash does a lot of translating for me. That's Seth Ketchel, and that's James
Tesoro.
Okay. He was on the phone with me. I've got hours and hours and hours of calls with him. Okay. All of it. Recordings too.
Him, who? James or Seth?
James.
And James was the military, wasn't he?
They were all military.
Yeah.
Everybody I spoke to was either in the military or just out of the military.
And
they were all under Flynn. This was a military operation.
Right. And most special ops, right?
Right.
Yeah.
This was also the Defense Intelligence. This is also Evergreen. This is also child trafficking. These people kept telling you the military was going to save you. You can go to the next article, but the next article is just that he was then going to run for, was it mayor? Shebogan. You see what I'm saying? What
Yeah.
did Juan do on these calls? They had all these people going in, running for different offices. They were infiltrating your government. All of these people. Okay, you can hit it. Our last podcast, what did we tell you? All of this was going to happen. We told you about Mary Fanning. We told you about the plan, which is why you were never supposed to see this. That's what it was. That's what was going on. All right, then you hit the next one. Now, when we told you about money laundering, we told you about Penn National. What did we find out? NBA gambling shows that the La Costa Nostra is live and well. You want to talk about insight? Who gave you that? I even mentioned it live and well. And I did that podcast in 2015.
Yeah, I was gonna say 10 years ago.
Right. And then we just replayed it and tried to explain it to you. And there's the connection with Trump and the mafia. Listen, the mafia controlled the casinos. That's Penn National. It was always about money laundering. It's what they steal in the trillions, they have to launder in the trillions. And the sports betting, what do you think horse racing is? And they controlled it. What do you think I found? Them fixing races, money fraud, money laundering. They're still doing it. So in other words, again, insight, there it is. And it happened 2 weeks after it. I hit it. Now, this is what you've got to understand what the DOJ is afraid of now. It's what's on here. This is the Pandora's box. There's certain questions that they can't answer that you have to understand, which is why to Arizona I was to be murdered, because of these elements. So you have to understand the first line is the money laundering network. It incriminates the IRS, the Treasury Inspector General of the United States on tape. That was Erwin Day recording it with James O'Keefe. It is the ultimate blackmail. It is all the evidence that Flynn wanted to use as protection. That all these people, why his people tried to turn me for so many months and only went to the death after I kept saying no and exposing them. So think about this. Ready? The IRS, who's on the 50 million, the Treasury Inspector General who covered up the crime to the point where we recorded him, and the mailings of the sealed envelopes that Ticker's own brother, Curtis Morley, and Tom Morley was the agent, was intercepting. Now, 22 or 23 envelopes were sealed for 3 years, never opened. It was 100% proof of that corruption. That's the envelopes they came in. That's the FedEx envelope. And Erin Day was there too. And the call to the Treasury Inspector General was to Tom Morley, who put him on. That is absolute evidence. The evidence that Lullen took by hand. That is the first line of that list of evidence. List of evidence described by the United States Attorney. Lullen, the most powerful law enforcement officer in all of New England. He gives it to the Attorney General of the United States and the Washington Bureau of the FBI, meaning they own it. They cannot explain it, which is why I had to be killed. You get it? Which is why they asked for those settlements, which they asked for these documents. Now, what's the other piece that's unexplainable that they can't get away from? Dick Anagos, the cartel. In fact, you know what? You had the recording. I think I'm going to call Chris. I'm going to tell him we have a plant in his office. It posted the recording. IRS on tape. Everybody heard it. It was the Inspector General of the United States, Kim Campus. It was proof they put my controller of the company was a Titka agent. It was covered up from the inside. All of it was. But that recording was absolute proof. Those mailings are absolute proof. What you need here now is absolute. That goes to the money laundering network of the deep state, of what threatens Congress and the Senate, that leverages a president. Your IRS and Treasury are involved. It's part of the theft. That's the absolute proof. They can't deny it. Why did Mullen take it? Because they wanted no underlining to see it. What you're seeing here was the Inspector Kitka agent, Marco Sorelli. Mr. Gill, here is the complaint number regarding what we had spoke about yesterday. Let me see if I can read it from here. Okay. Thank you. You set up an appointment for me to deliver the evidence. I will go to you. My children are being threatened. We need help as soon as possible. Shaheen knows that the president has my evidence, and it makes me a dangerous witness. Don't forget how he outed Senator Shaheen. Shaheen was part of the IRS and the leveraging piece. What I didn't know, and the DOJ let us know, was the connection with Penn National, as you see me give that to Flynn, and I gave it to Mullen in the Department of Justice, that Trump was partners with them. That's why Trump didn't come forwards. Kitka wanted to make me settle. They wanted to pay me off, which is why they kept giving me case numbers. Because of that evidence that I showed you, there was no getting around that evidence. That's why they were going to pay me off. I kept saying no because of the importance of what I had. And it affected all of us. Okay, hit it. Now, what was the next piece? Oh, right. Remember, we just gave you the Sinaloa cartel 2 weeks before they arrested the cartels. Where'd they arrest them? Oh, Franklin, New Hampshire. Miami. I gave you Miami, that the Coast Guard was taking off the boats. Texas, I told you that I gave you evidence with the trucking company that was moving children back to New Hampshire. They were moving drugs too, and machine guns back to Laredo. And Arizona is where they were sending me to get murdered. They knew this was coming up with the Department of Justice, and this was going to get outed. Why? Because they don't need the Sinaloa cartel. The DOJ is destroying the roads to them. Now, you're going to get Chinese, you're going to get the manufacturing of fentanyl, but you're not going to get the Sinaloa cartel, which is why they had me go to Arizona saying Sinaloa cartel. That's how they were going to blame on my death. And then that's why Ariel came up and said, oh, well, we went through the deeds. Bullshit, you did. It was the DOJ giving him this. They were going to say the cartel killed me when I went to Arizona. Instead, it was Flynn and the DOJ. Okay, hit it. Now, I gave you one absolute, and that's through the IRS, the money laundering ticket, the whole operation, right? You know what the other absolute is? This asshole. That's the American cartel. That's Planet Fitness across this country. It's the American cartels that are in distribution. It's the American cartels that are in partnership with the Department of Justice and the DEA. This guy's been arrested more than Capone. That case number and all is an absolute that they know. They sealed all his arrests. I got them. 106 witnesses, 6 arresting state troopers, 46 ready for testimony that they blocked. Who blocked it? Bill Shaheen. Who was Bill Shaheen working for? The Department of Justice. Remember I said they control your courts? It's the Department of Justice. Now, what did I get out of there? I had informants that saying it was, here, I'm sorry. Here's the case number. Okay. The case number. He get arrested. This is one case, ready? He get busted on Silly Street. He get busted on Western Avenue. Millions in cocaine, millions in heroin, machine guns. $475,000 in cash wrapped in his dirty underwear in a hamper. No shit. I listened to the tapes. That St. Mary's Bank, he had 100 safety deposit box full of gold bars. These are all absolutes. And this is the wealthiest guy in New Hampshire. He's owning casinos, hospitals, and treatment centers. Are you getting this? That's the DOJ protecting him. Now, the absolute evidence with the IRS and that corruption, they open that door. They can't explain it. You open and see his real arrest records. They can't hide it. What was the evidence that I was showing? My son worked for the Harley dealership sometimes, and I know certain people have important visits there. They use and move the drugs through motorcycle gangs. The sons to help him now. This is somebody who was in it, tons of money. Motorcycle gangs, right? Are they selling drugs? Yes, fentanyl being manufactured and sold stateside now. That's why you don't need a Sinaloa cartel. You manufacture it. We've moved on, folks. I had the manufacturing. Remember what it got us? The largest seizure of fentanyl still in history. Hit the next one. Okay. In the Boston area, I had the manufacturing company. I had everything. And so does the DOJ. That's good. That's our second absolute. Ready? The evidence against the IRS and Titka, the intercepting of my mail, the voice of the Inspector General of the Treasury turning around and committing that fraud, absolute, undeniable. And Dick Anagos himself, the largest drug dealer and head of the largest cartel in this country. That's a fact. There's Anagos now working with Sununu. Sununu, who helped him open up his casinos to money laundering. You'll see him opening up banks. You'll see him opening up treatment centers, always with Sununu and Anagos. There he is again. There's Anagos. Is there somebody that screams drug dealer more than those assholes? But there's Sununu again. There's the connection. There's the DOJ working together. And what I'm going to tell you in Arizona, who was the beneficiary of not only my death, but the brokered convention, was Sununu and Haley. You can't find Haley with a search warrant, and Sununu retired. But that was the plot. That is Sununu. That is the connection with the cartels and your politicians. Sununu comes right out of the Bush family, and his brother's now running for senator. Okay, hit it. Now you know what I have for evidence. Now you know that they cannot dispute any of that. So what you have to understand now is, what's the plan? What is the DOJ's plan? Trump is compromised, but they can't give you the Epstein files. They can't give you the Pandora's box, because that opens up the laundering network. So what is the path of their complete control? The insurrection that they're going to tag with Trump. So Jack Smith zeroes in on Trump insane Oval Office meeting. You know that same meeting? Now, this is prior to the election. That's the meeting that I showed you those text messages from. You know, the insane meeting from the Oval Office. Powell and Flynn was reaching out to me during that time. I was speaking to the Flynn team from that day and for the next 3 weeks. The last text I showed you, when I was telling them I was reporting them to the Department of Justice, and the criminality that I was giving them that with the IRS and Titka, there. So, what's the plan? Well, wait a minute. Jack Smith asked Congress and Justice to allow him to testify. Exactly, there's the plan. This is why they're also threatening me now. Jack Smith's back. He's going to be in front of Congress. He wants to do it publicly. And guess who his key witnesses are? Flynn, Powell, Giuliani. Remember those immunity deals that you didn't know about? That's what they were. You know who got one too? Fanning. Why do you think Fanning's husband in law firm was dealing with Dominion? They're closing the door of all of that. Why do you think Lindell's going, I've been set up? He was. So is Tina Peters. Which also will explain the brokered convention and Shelby Bush and Liz Harris. Oh, let's see what we got here. Jack Smith shifts from the defense to counterattack. No shit. That's exactly what's going on. And it's going on now, which is why my life's being threatened again. And why I'm being threatened by Fanning and the Flynn group that isn't testifying, that didn't get immunity, that I could put them in jail. And we could start with Michelle Moore. And then we can get to Juan and Nino. Now, who's blocking it? Oh, FBI fires, unfires, refires agents linked to Jack Smith probe. Patel was always working with Flynn. Is also working and incriminates him. That's Patel. That's Acosta. That's Bongino. You don't think they had my evidence? I showed you emails that Bongino took my evidence. They're protecting this because that's where Jack Smith's going again. And you know who will tell you this? Crash is here. On the very day that Trump won the election, at that moment, I have a woman from the DOJ turned around and said, speak to McMahon. It was Stacy Burke. Stacy Burke is a DOJ witness. She was in the Flynn group.
Now you don't mean Stacy Burke reached out to you. You're saying you say things and people don't understand. Stacy Burke didn't reach out to you, but a person reached out
the
and
DOJ did.
You should work with McMahon.
Right.
You're connecting McMahon with Stacy Burke because that's where he's getting his.
That's exactly right. Thank you. Stacy Burke was the witness for the DOJ, was Jack Smith's witness. That's why when she was saying I was giving the stuff to the J6 committee, they had it and kept it. But after that meeting, I became that important witness. Not just on December 18th. But the confessions of Shelby Bush and Liz Harris and the insurrection tied to Flynn, which is why you didn't get to hear the recording. The DOJ's got it. They wanted me to team up with Stacy Burke because that would turn around as part of the prosecution where Jack Smith was going. As soon as the election was lost, this was the plan. All what's happening now, hit it. And if you remember, Flynn said he had 8 subpoenas, right? Which one was that?
Oh, you had this one first. I wasn't sure.
That's fine. That's fine. Flynn's stunning court testimony gives away the game. You know what this asshole's testimony was?
Oh, yeah.
He doesn't believe that was the election was corrupted.
Fraud. Yeah.
Right. Just like he didn't say, hey, what about these podcasters? They don't belong to me. And they did. He turned around and said, saying, hey, listen, I don't have any credible evidence that this election was fraud because they knew he was going to flip. Now, look, what is it? He got 8 subpoenas prior to the election. Remember, and he's claiming the 5th. This guy took an immunity deal with Smith. That's why Giuliani's off. That's why Powell's off and nobody's off of Dominion and all of them. Why? Because they're working with Smith in the DOJ. You know what they're going to say? They all work for Trump and Trump knew. That's the plan. And you know, remember, Stacy Burke says, oh, those 8 subpoenas came from me. It wasn't her lawsuit, it's what she gave Jack Smith. Both sides seems to want all this truth suppressed from the public, while Liz Harris and Shelby Burke worked with Sidney Powell and Michael Flynn falsely framed me. The same people who brought me into Arizona to get snuffed. The same people who thought, ready, boys and girls, that I was the DOJ. You know what the mystery was? Why did they have the brokered convention meeting with me? What the fuck am I? They brought me there for the Sinaloa cartel. I never told Michelle or any of them about the brokered convention. I put that meeting together within days. Why did they come? Because they thought I was the DOJ and I was setting them up. What happened in that meeting? And listen, if you can link that recording of me speaking to Stacy Burke at the end of this.
I'll post it in the description box.
That was right after the meeting. I'm telling Stacy Burke, guess what? I didn't know who Stacy Burke was. I never mentioned her name, although she was part of this group. She was in that meeting. I called her and let her know what was going on. And you hear the recording that she held on to a year because the DOJ didn't want you to hear that just yet. And what that was what happened in that meeting. Shelby Bush and Harris confessed, not just to the brokered convention, but working with Flynn in the insurrection and the lies about the election fraud and their people involved in doing it. And they mentioned Patrick Burns and taking 700,000, that the podcasters were 98% CIA. I wasn't asking the questions. They were giving me the answers.
Right.
It was a confession thinking I was the DOJ. That's what happened. See, what happened was I was supposed to get smoked. Here's the irony, you ready? The meeting saved my life, but it also saved Trump. But by saving Trump, put me in a holding pattern, is why we're still here. See, in other words, that brokered convention was going to work. Who was going to be the president? Haley. And Sununu would have been the VP. That was the military-industrial complex. That's bombing Iran. Why these things are all happening still now is because they're all compromised, including Trump. Okay. Now, how did I get there? The Arizona. Remember all these podcasters? Michelle Moore, one by one. Who did she have on? Elvire. And then Elvire wants to do a movie about me. It was the first smoke job. After I'm telling her, I'm catching them, including Elvire. I was telling Michelle, Michelle was telling them. That's why they went to Plan B. Who did Elvire turn out to be? I showed you the text message, right? Working was hired by Flynn. Boone Cutler. Boone Cutler, in fact, he even says Cutler were in the middle of J6. None of them have been arrested. And what did we just find out? Flynn said, oh, Boone Cutler died in his arms. Listen, I wouldn't believe Boone Cutler was dead if I did his fucking autopsy. You understand? They're cutting the connections. That's DOJ too. And who hired? Boone Cutler hired Elvire. Black Ops, Special Ops, tied to J6. What did he give me? Seth Ketchel and Carissa Ketchel. So the people communicating with me on December 18th is connected to Elvire. Elvire is a CIA asset, right? After that, right, I catch Elvire, I'm telling Michelle. Michelle comes up with Plan B, the Arizona, and this piece of shit, Tuckeroni. Right? And he gives Tuckeroni with Mickey Klein is a liar. What's the bait on the hook? Again, they go through Michelle. Anybody notice that Michelle only turns around and is only speaking to Jesus along with that Mark Taylor and selling you bullshit? No content, no mention my name. She was sending me to my death. She was using this guy as bait. And the Sinaloa cartel. Oh, who's Tuckeroni connected to? Flynn. Who's Elvire working for? Flynn. Who wanted me dead at that point? Flynn. Because if the deal was with the DOJ and the confessions of all these people, you don't need me saying it's bullshit and they're connected with these other pieces. That's why I had to go. I hit the next one. Who was Liz Harris? Who's she connected to? Flynn. She was the bait. Remember, she's saying the Sinaloa cartel bringing me. She was part of the deal. So was Ariel. That's why Ariel was saying the deeds in the Sinaloa cartel. And then months later, we find out that they get busted. The DOJ always knew. They were going to say they killed me. But who's she connected to? Lindell. Burns. She was part of that meeting. There she is with Shelby Bush. After the thing, brokered convention. Explain why they were part of it. Explain why they were part of the brokered convention. They knew the people, they had the votes. It was all a setup. By me outing it, them thinking it was the DOJ, you know what Flynn did? Flynn tells Trump, hey, I broke it up. That's why Trump days later says, hey, the Arizona convention. Bullshit, it was me. Here's the irony. It saved my life, but it put me in this hellhole. Oh, there's Michelle, right? The brokered convention, the meeting no one wants you to hear. Well, let's think about it. Michelle took down every one of those videos, every one of them. What I was telling you, you lived with me through those, including the threats on my life, including the brokered convention and what happened. She took them all down. Why? Because they were evidence. Think about it. You were only 300,000 plus on those podcasts that I posted. 300,000. We can't get 1,800. But it's more important now than even then. But that's what it was. Now, let's see the evidence. Nobody denies it. If you don't think that the DOJ has everyone in that meeting, you're insane. You don't think they have a copy of that video, you're insane. They all have it. It's all leveraged. No one denies shit. And what did she say? This is Tuckeroni talking to Harris. Basically, and Harris is saying that she's not going to give up the tape. Never.
Never.
She gave it up to the DOJ, and it was the brokered convention, and it was proof of it. Listen, in this world, they all wiretap each other. This is Michelle talking to Matthew and explaining the meeting, and Matthew's telling it was a recording. Michelle now is trying to save her own ass at this point because they're questioning Michelle, going, did you send Gil? Did the DOJ flip? You see, all of this is all proof and evidence. And what happened? Now think about this. Hit the next one. So in other words, there's no doubt, and these people are all witnesses, and the DOJ has it all. Now, the very night of the brokered convention, that evening, Tuckeroni and a friend of his, this guy Luke, puts that on my door. They're standing up as united front. We will not tolerate any outside influence. We will not back down. We will do whatever we can to protect our state. Stop gaslighting. Get out of Arizona. You are not welcome here. You have been warned. Well, it gets a little. Now he taped that to my door. That very night, the guy who brought me there against the cartel, as soon as the brokered convention meeting, bang, that's what I got that evening within hours. And then it went on again. Let's see what else. The warning I got, multiple warnings. But here's Matthew. Mike tried to respond to me like I would see what he said, since he blocked me like a coward. Hey, Mike, I'm coming for you, and I know your location. Isn't that interesting? You know this call I got threatening my life? They gave my room number to me and the hotel. And this is the message to those assholes and the message to him. I ain't moving again.
And you mean the call that you just recently got?
Yes. Which brought me back to this. The same, to shut me up, not to say anything. And you know what? I'm not moving again. You want to come? You come. I'd rather die as a warrior than out some bag in the service elevator. You see? Hey, Mike, I'm coming for you, and I know your location. Remember the type of thing I carry. These assholes, he's armed. They carry a gun. Not the coward that turns around and pulls a trigger. I'm going to start with breaking your kneecaps first. Then we will move into the torture. Listen, if I'm worried about a gay New York lawyer, I'm the asshole who put the cartel's faces on signs. But this is the nature of the beast. This asshole was going to kill me. That was the plan. This is the guy that would do anything. Now, again, what was the motive? There's Sununu with Haley, right? That was the beneficiary. That was to be the president and the vice president. That was the brokered convention that we know did exist. All of it. That's the Bush family. That's the partnership with Anagos. That's the casinos. That's the hospitals. That's the banks. How do you explain it? You can't, which is why you can't find Haley again with a search warrant and Sununu's not running. Now that I caught them all, guess what they send me? Lockwood. They send me 2 CIA agents. You know what the thing was? How the fuck did I know what was going on? Remember cursed by brilliant insight, condemned by moral conviction? I competed against the wealthiest men in the world. I had one crayon, insight. It's also the curse.
I would just call him an agent or something because when I looked him up, remember I looked him up and was he into gaming or I forget what he had. It
This
was
is what he told me, which I
crypto,
knew was bullshit. Okay.
but I looked him up and I found other evidence on him.
Here's the deal. He turns around. Now, again, this is right after the meeting. We're getting 300,000 a whack on the podcast. He turns around and I'm in a dive hotel. He follows me to this gym and he goes, "Oh, I'm working on a laser to take off tattoos of gang members, and children being trafficked." They open the door, know your target. Then he starts talking to me about a horse racing and a billionaire who got cheated for 10 million on a horse with Bob Baffert. If you watch the Breeders' Cup, you met Bob Baffert. I told that story to Michelle Moore. He
Only.
never heard Michelle Moore. He never heard that. Bullshit. Bullshit. So he already told me, he tried to make the connection. Listen, if this is the best agents you got, you better hope nothing happens to me because I'm your best weapon because I'm smarter than these motherfuckers. So
So
in other words,
you told her a story that only she should have known.
yes.
And he knew it.
He knew it and didn't know Michelle. It's
He
bullshit.
said he didn't know Michelle.
Right. It
Okay.
was all bullshit.
Right.
It was a lie. So I knew, but you know what his question was? Do you need help? Who are you working with? They still didn't know it was the DOJ. Is the DOJ? Listen, I got there from inside. They couldn't trust one another. That's why he's saying, I'm a billionaire and I'm going to give you money. Keep your fucking money. Listen, I've never been compromised. Never once. But and Michelle Moore put that together. And I'm telling Michelle, the CIA's coming to me. You know what she's saying? She even said this, "Oh, a billionaire wouldn't be in that hotel."
Yeah, right.
Right. But
He had
see, that's her sale job.
he had
But
a
it's also how I found them because as I'm mentioning Ariel, that's what and Ariel was that last bridge to cross was part of her handler, was part of the Arizona hit. That was part of Liz Harris, all of it. That's why she couldn't go there. But here's how the DOJ is. Now, remember now, I'm dangerous now. Not only am I Pandora's box, not only do I tie into the Epstein files, I am the key witness in the brokered convention and the confessions of Shelby Bush and Liz Harris, which connects to Stacy Burke. I am now that witness. I am now Jack Smith's #1 witness to take out Trump. And just before the election, I haven't heard from my son Cole. It says here 4 years. It was more like 5. You know what they know? They know my weakness is my children. Listen, if I gave up my life for your children, imagine what I think of my children. My youngest turns around and sends me this. Why? Because they want me to cut a deal. They want me to stop. They knew what I had. I will do my best to get you a place where you deserve to be a part of our lives. I want to start my own podcast and bring it to the people. I miss you every day, Dad. Small and cheap, a small place to live. I wanted to turn around and stop living in a hotel. Just something small and cheap that I could turn around in with some degree of safety. You've always been my hero. I love you so much. I miss you and it gets me sad. I wasn't done teaching you. I love you, brother. I worked my ass off to make you proud. You're my hero. I love you so much, Dad. I haven't had the opportunity to tell you in 4 years, but I need you to know. And again, I love you so much, Dad. You taught me. Before I leave this world, I want you to know you're good. I know your heart was broken. The DOJ sat on my children. You think this is a son who doesn't speak to his father? Or do you think this is someone the DOJ and the FBI have turned around and hold my children as fucking hostages? And now my children reach out with the DOJ watching, wanting me to quit, knowing where my weakness is. You taught me how to take care of my loved ones. I miss you. No matter what, you will be my hero. Life is about loyalty. In this life, I was the one who would give up my life to save yours. I fought to get back what they stole from you and your brother and sister. I worked hard so you would have a better life. It's why I became a hero. I wanted my children to know who their father was. We know you fought for us and we appreciate it. Anyhow, right? Know the timing of this. This is the morality of these people. This is the evil. We're fighting satanic. They have my children. That was to turn around and have me stop. Now, guess what? If Trump lost, you don't think Jack Smith had Trump? That was the insurrection. It was lined up. And Trump was guilty. And who was going to be the witnesses? Flynn, Powell, Giuliani. Remember that crazy December 18th meeting? That even, and Smith says, I own your lawyers. Of course he did. They just didn't need me fucking it up, which telling you that the DOJ was part of this. You see? And they reached out to him. So as soon as Trump won, that's why the DOJ called me. That's why they sent us off to Stacy Burke. Why? Plan B. We're living Plan B now. This economy is going to fail. This bubble. We're talking about the fucking tariffs. Trump didn't think to go to court before with them taxing you. You're now an additional trillion. This is where it was going. This is the plan. That's Jack Smith saying, I want to talk to Congress, but I'm still a problem, which is why Fanning and the 98% of the CIA need me dead, threatening to kill me, just like Tuckeroni. Right after this, it brought me back to the same thing, which is again to saying to you, I'm not moving. Okay. Now, just before all that, when I caught Michelle with Elvire, right? What did she call Elvire? Proof that Ariel knows Elvire is CIA. Why then? They still needed me back. She still tried to open that line of communication. Listen, I tell you, satanic. Nobody's more satanic than Michelle Moore. And who is Elvire connected with? Tuckeroni. Plan A and Plan B, all working with Flynn. I think that's it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So in other words, everything's in peace. Everything. You watch those podcasts with Michelle Moore. I gave you the broker convention. I gave it to the police. You've seen me do it. I told you the CIA. All of that happened. I gave to you at present time, which is why she took them all down, which is why she won't mention my name. Why? Because there'll be an investigation. Do you know why they're scared now? Why I knew there was an investigation? An investigation came out of their mouth. The same person that said I would never live to testify. The same time that after that meeting, they threatened to murder me. And listen, Crash knows this too. Getting out of Arizona became important because I did feel that. That's the problem with insight. You put all of it together, you go, wait a minute, it's your ass.
Yeah. And so you're saying you're pretty sure of an investigation.
I'm positive. Because you know what? Smith still got all his pieces. That's why Vandersteel's saying, hey, why isn't Fanning being arrested? She's got 34 counts mentioned because she took a deal
Right.
with the DOJ. She worked with them. That's why she's connected to the CIA. That's why her husband worked in the sale of Dominion. They're closing the door of that investigation. Wait a minute now. It's why Lindell's saying, why am I on the bag? I was triggered. Flynn wasn't mentioned. He wasn't in the lawsuit. Powell was released. Giuliani was released. Why? They come up with $1 billion? No, because they were part of the deal and they're witnesses of Jack Smith that ties Trump to the insurrection with themselves. They're the perfect witnesses. It's why Tina Peters is still on hold. She was what she did in Colorado, what they were doing in Arizona. That's Bush and Harris. Those are the confessions. Tina Peters will flip like a top. She knew she was set up and betrayed. And that's what's going on now. I am still that witness. If they're going to use the tape, and they will, they're going to use as a witness everybody in that room, I become dangerous, which is why Fanning and Wells worked overtime to get my number, in which the very next day I get threatened. They mentioned investigation, which told me what they were afraid of. They were afraid of my testimony. What were they telling you before, Centella? You're going to be weaponized in Congress. You're damn tootin'. The problem the DOJ has and why they were using my children, they don't want me to give you Pandora's box. They want me to give you Trump, which is why you got Penn National, but they didn't want me to give you Titka, the recording of the Inspector General. They don't want you to give Anagos, because who protected Anagos? Shaheen. Who protected Maxwell? The same Bill Shaheen. You imagine the doors I open?
They don't want you to give the IRS.
Right. Because that's part of everything that audits is part of what's corrupted. It is the laundering network. It is connected to your casinos. So it's a limited strike. And it's the strike that Smith can only go through and leave the DOJ intact, saying, hey, Trump led the insurrection. Wasn't their plot. Flynn, Powell, Giuliani, and now they become witnesses. They get immunity deals, and they turn around and take out Trump, put their own guy. And listen, Trump's compromised like anybody else, but it's their control. That's why they had Biden, who was a zombie, who was acting as president. Jay, that's who it was. But I incriminate them, the DOJ. So the insurrection is the only path the DOJ has that doesn't incriminate themselves. I am the essence of incriminating the DOJ. And the irony is, those confessions that I had at the broken convention was because they thought the DOJ sent me, because they could never figure out how I figured it out. Cursed by brilliant insight, condemned by moral conviction. How do you think I became one of the wealthiest people? How do you think I became world champion, beating the billionaire? It was insight. It's also the curse. But I'm telling you, with the same insight, they're afraid. Listen, the DOJ wants to find me, they can find me. And I'm telling you, I ain't running, I ain't hiding. You can come. Flynn's people come. You now know why. You know this evidence, it exists. And I posted this evidence. I posted those screenshots of those text messages, those emails. You have seen the description of that evidence from the DOJ and Lullen himself. You've seen Anagos. You insist on opening his arrest records. Then you get to ask, how is that man running treatment centers, casinos, and banks? There is no explanation other than the DOJ. That's where we are. And listen, there's 98% CI podcasters. I'll crush them all. We'll start with Michelle. We'll go to Juan. We'll go to Ariel. It was a CIA operation. They turned around and confused you intentionally. They incited you for another insurrection. The same players who were behind J6 from all Biden's years were setting you up again and stealing your money and selling you gold and selling you wave watches and selling you lies to set you up again, all with the DOJ. Somebody was protecting them. This is the separation. Maybe we should put that part of the title. The separation is the people who have the deals. Flynn's going off and saying, hey, I don't know these podcasters. Powell, Giuliani. Hey, yeah, it was their idea. Then all of a sudden, the Ninos and the Michelles and the Jacos and all these other fucking frauds. Did you ever think of asking for a resume? Who the fuck are these assholes? I mean, what was one? An insurance investigator? That made him Jesus? Who can come to you as JFK Jr.?
Yeah.
And you bought that bullshit? That's what scares the shit out of me, is how gullible that each and every one of you were. Listen, they don't give you a fair. It was Biden and Harris. And then it was Trump with Harris. How about this in New York? They gave you Cuomo and Montgomery there. You think, how about a choice? Can we have somebody that's honest? See, that's how and they have you believing, you know what? We'll elect them out. How's that work so far? They own the politics. These billionaires back these politicians. It's money who gets them in. It's the DOJ with the CIA, the DIA, the Mossad. It builds you, that feeds off of these predators, sets them up, and also with their money, which is why I'm so important, which is why they sent O'Keefe and the Mossad. Intercept his evidence. It's why they sent the top U.S. prosecutor, Lullen. It's why Lullen gave it to the AG. Why it goes to the top? They don't want anybody from the bottom knowing. They don't want you to know. Well, now you do. Those pieces of evidence I gave you was 100%. It's why Shaheen's tied to Maxwell. It's why Lullen's tied to Maxwell. It's why Shaheen's on my 50 million. It's why Lullen took that evidence. It's why you went to the AG's office. It's why I was used on December 18th in the insurrection as an insurance policy. It's why when all those Flynn people and I didn't flip, then it was to be murdered. So when you think Michelle Moore and her talking to God, she set me up to be murdered. Not once, twice. And you tell me you look at Matthew and Elvira and not know who they were. And then the confessions. Crash is going to put that tape of Stacy Burke. Remember now, she didn't show this for a year, and I had no idea she recorded it. But you hear what happened in that meeting. Right after that meeting. Never think that the DOJ doesn't have it. Never think that Jack Smith doesn't have it. That is going to be used now. Jack Smith didn't give up this case. He just took it in another direction. He'll be in front of Congress. And in Congress now or soon, they'll take a vote on impeachment. That's how they win the game. And it's also why all these podcasters are afraid. It's also why Fanning had these people threaten my life, because their life's on the line. It's why Vandersteel's screaming. She's being left out of the party. They couldn't give everybody immunity. Somebody had to be punished. Right, Mike Lindell? That's what you're seeing, the separation. These are, in my worst moments, these are the things that I was thinking that I have to tell you, that I had to have you understand what was going on. Okay.
Besides praying for, you were praying to live, but you were also praying to die. And I just want to say real quick, I did not have contact with Mike that whole time. I mean, somebody had accused me of, like, you know what's going on, and I didn't. I forget what night it was. What's today? Friday? What Wednesday? Tuesday? I have to go look. I
What
checked
happened
my
was,
DMs and you were there. I'm like, oh my God, I said, Mike's alive.
right, when I was, the night before that I had that phone call,
Yeah. When was that? Do you know?
I think it was that podcast, right after our podcast. What
Okay.
happened was I had a call on my phone and I only speak to Crash. So, but I get a random call, solicitor or something like that. And then it called right back again. So I picked it up thinking it had to be Crash, knowing it was there, and it was blank. And the irony was, it took me back to how Tuckeroni called my hotel room and no one answered. But they made sure I was there. I went. Again, it felt like that. The next day, I did get the same call and I answered it. And that's when they said about me being part of this investigation that I wouldn't live to testify. So I knew they had my number. I knew Fanning set me up and Wells to get my number. I didn't want to call Crash because I was afraid that what she knew might endanger her life. And then that whole time, I got really, there's getting sick and then there's being tortured. It went to a level of torture to the point where I was asking myself if it was okay to die. Did I give you enough for you people to understand? And then this fucking phone call gave me determination. Fuck them, I still got something to do. And what I had to do was what I'm giving you right now. Is this truth? And also telling them to go fuck themselves, and I'm not moving and I'm not going anywhere. And if you think you're scaring me, you're not. And irony is I think they pushed me to say, hey, I got to get through this. We ain't done.
Yeah. And because
But
I
I'm still,
heard it last you said to me you were really sick, and I didn't want to tell anybody because you didn't want really, I guess. And I was like, I don't know where you're at. I was hoping you were getting help or in the hospital or getting better. One of I don't know.
I knew I was compromised. They had my hotel room. And I want to thank these people here where I was. They moved me to a room under construction. So I didn't leave the hotel, but I went into a room that was still under construction that nobody had. Now I've since moved, but I'm not moving again. And I'm angry that I even did. Because when we move again, I get threatened again.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that no more. And that was part of these other. See, I became very reflective of where I was, what happened. Even when I tell you about Cursed by Brilliant Insight, it was remembering each time in my life and how I got here. Even with my children and what I wanted them to know and understand. That's why even doing this was important. Even mentioning my children and how they're being used and how the DOJ and even my understanding of going back and thinking of how Marisa was telling me about the corruption, and I remember saying, "No, it is satanic." You know what a measure of a man is by his enemies. Who have been my enemies? I've not fought cartels, the Department of Justice, child traffickers. I mean, are there worse people out there? But you know what? I needed to get this out to you. Now I want to keep talking. I want to keep telling you what's going on. But I'm also telling you I ain't better. I'm better at the moment. But I don't want to say my condition because it also might give them a timetable or something. But these assholes did this intentionally. I'm not going to doctors. I'm not getting help. They even disabled my fucking car. I had to leave my car. But this is how you fight back, by telling you the truth and having you see it. You have nobody fighting for it. We've got to fight for each other. White hats, black hats, it's just us. But we are the power here. We are what they fear. When those assholes called me an investigation, you know what I turned around and thought? They're afraid. And that's what you have. I know what they fear. And that's what should give you strength. They fear you figuring it out. Listen, this is going to be a bubble. You are going to be penalized. What happened in New York might start happening across this country because they have been robbing and stealing from you. You know, all those rich billionaires, you know, all the horses they buy, 100% tax deductible as you starve. Have you figured this out yet? As Trump gets into the fucking Bitcoins and so forth, he's betting against the dollar. He put in these tariffs and you went to 38 trillion. You think things are getting better? Where? It is the essence of a bubble. This is 1929 times 10. Not if you figure it out. You take your money back. I showed you where it was. I showed you how to get it. I showed you how they clean it and launder it. When I gave you the Mafia Alive and Well, they gave you the NBA and the mob. When I told you the Sinaloa cartel was going to go out of business, they were going to swap them over to the Chinese, you found the Sinaloa cartel within 2 weeks. They get smashed. No one's telling me that. But it's on the board. And I'm telling you what's on the board is they're afraid. And they're afraid of my testimony. And I'm telling you, I will testify. But I will tell you it was the DOJ behind it all. Bunch of corrupt lawyers. Who would have thought it? You wonder why our courts are corrupt? It's the same law firms. It's the same lawyers that become judges and become politicians. It's what they sell is protection. It is all these podcasters stealing and robbing you. And when you turn around and start cashing out your retirements and gold, and when you lose half of your money, it was them. That's why they're going down too. The DOJ plays the long game. The smart people that I'm playing chess with are those U.S. attorneys, are the Jack Smiths. What does Trump throw at them? Some beauty queen from Colorado against a Jack Smith? Are you shitting me? This is already written, which is why people are afraid. And I smell fear. And I tell you, it helped me tremendously. Listen, I've been in 1,000 fights. It was the moment that the opponent was afraid that I knew I was going to win. They were afraid. They were afraid of you knowing the truth. You just heard it. There's a way in. We can take them out. We can get your money back. And we can all seek justice. Okay.
All right, Mike.
All right. Thanks, Crash.
Until next time.
Yeah.